Hey everyone, how's it going? Well, it's New Year's Eve, and you probably know what I'm gonna be talking about. You know, if you didn't already read the title. We're gonna be covering the top 5 most disappointing comics of 2023. And you know me, I like to just tear the band-aid off. No need to prolong this. Number 5. Godzilla Rivals, Biollante vs. Destroya. I don't really talk about it too much, but I really am a Godzilla fan, and one of my favorite kaijus is Destroya, because just look at this thing. My god, the design is badass, their introduction is really freaking creepy. It actually starts off as like an alien horror film, and it's one of the few monsters that can actually take credit of killing Godzilla. But Biollante is not a pushover either. She is pretty kick-ass, and her origin is also pretty tragic. So when I heard that they were gonna do a comic where the two throw down, I was hyped until I read it, and yeah. Like, you could have told me this was a Plants vs. Zombies prequel and I would have freaking bought that, since we're mostly focused on the human characters either want to manipulate Biollante, which ends up creating the plant zombies, or the protagonists who for some reason think the best idea is to resurrect Destroya. Then there's the art, which I'm sorry. When I hear Destroya, I think of something that you would see in like Godzilla in Hell. Not this super cartoony style, which would be more at home for like a Saturday morning kids cartoon. It just feels so weird. These are two kaiju who are very dark, very messed up, and have caused some serious destruction, and this is what we're focusing on? Just wasted potential. Number 4. Amazing Spider-Man issues 19 and 20. I talked about this briefly in another video, but the premise is pretty cool when I first heard about it, where essentially Felicia and Peter are gonna go and deal with a whodunit murder mystery, which would be kind of fun to do, especially when you find out that the suspects and the victims are billionaires who have actually taken supervillain tech and have been using it for live-action role-playing games. We could have had something really cool, but it starts to immediately fall apart as we focus on Peter and MJ running into each other, and this is during the whole Paul thing. Well, I think it's still going, I don't know, I stopped really following Spider-Man, and Peter just reverting back to being very annoying and all around unlikable. And by the second issue, they kind of abandoned the murder mystery, which really sucks. Again, they could have done a whole thing with it. And of course, the ending where they make Felicia feel like a rebound girl, which is just so wrong. I don't even know what the point of that was. They eventually break up later, apparently, so yeah, this, kind of a waste. Number 3. Wonder Woman issue 800. This is gonna be really short here because I actually do plan on talking about Tom King in a future video, but for now I'm just gonna say this was a really bad start to his run. Number 2. DC Universe's Lazarus Planet. So last year I actually talked about Batman vs. Robin briefly, and said that the comic would actually have made it to last year's top 5 best comics list, but unfortunately the storyline wasn't finished yet. Well, yeah, Batman vs. Robin was good, but unfortunately something happened in the middle. For some reason, after the penultimate issue, the story immediately halted, and instead we moved on to Lazarus Planet, where Damian now has to face on the devil Naza, who has activated volcanoes that are, instead of secreting lava, are secreting Lazarus resin. Essentially, the power of the Lazarus Pit, the thing that gives Ra's al Ghul his immortality, in its purest form, which is also causing natural disasters and Lazarus storms that are giving people superpowers. The premise alone isn't bad, but man, this story just drags out to an insane degree, and really, it just kind of halts all the cool stuff that was going on with Batman vs. Robin, especially when it came to the magical stuff. It's one thing to waste potential, but it's another thing to just take that potential and throw it out the trash, and then take it out of the trash and then wipe the dirt off and act like nothing happened. Now, on to the dishonorable mentions. Extreme Venomverse. This anthology series didn't really have that many interesting stories, at least in the beginning. Later on, the stories actually got even better. Lazarus Planet, Revenge of the Gods. Okay, I have no idea why this is tied in Lazarus Planet, since really, besides the whole stuff that happened with the Lazarus resin, it's mostly focused on Shazam and Wonder Woman story, and much like Venomverse, actually gets better as the series progressed. And it was cool to see Billy team up with Diana, since we don't really see much of that. DC's Power Girl special. Yeah, this was just kinda boring, and I get what they were trying to do by reintroducing Power Girl, but unfortunately it does in a way that isn't really new. But the story itself is decent, it's nothing horrid, and it did lead to an interesting spin-off series. And the number one most disappointing comic of 2023 is Amazing Spider-Man Dead Language. You knew that this was number one. There is no way in hell any other comics are going to top this book. I already did a whole review of this, but the abridged version is, this story is awful. The characters are awful. The art is all over the place. And this was a story that made me not want to read the Amazing Spider-Man tale anymore, and most Peter Parker-centered stories. Now, there will be a few exceptions, like stories that take place in alternate universes, or in the case of Greg Weisman's Spectacular Spider-Man comic, gonna be a team book with Miles, and well, it is Wiseman, so I know he's gonna do a good job with the character. But this book here, God, I don't know what else to say about this book except do not read it. Do not hate read it, just do not read it, okay? I am not saying that as reverse psychology. Trust me. Now, we've done the most disappointing. Let's talk about the best with part 2.